about the Hall of Fame. Hey, I'm gonna live my life.
Spade Cooley murdered his wife in front of their 14-year-old daughter. Dwight Yoakam, famous for backstage meltdowns and firing musicians mid-tour. But they're only two of the 20 biggest jerks in country history. Wait till you hear who tops this twisted list. Number 20, Dwight Yoakam. Dwight Yoakam's charm on stage hit a temper that few could handle behind it. He wasn't known for drugs or violence. His vice was control. Crew members from his early tour said Dwight would stop entire shows over a missed spotlight cue or a slightly off-tempo. During his Guitars, Cadillacs, etc. run in 1986, he allegedly fired two roadies mid-concert for not feeling the rhythm. Co-stars on film sets described the same pattern. During Sling Blade 1996, insiders said he'd storm off for hours over lighting adjustments, leaving the crew scrambling. He demands perfection, one bandmate told Rolling Stone, but no one's perfect, especially not Dwight. Despite the tantrums, his record sold millions, and his acting career flourished. Fame only reinforced his stubborn streak. His way was always the only way. And if Yoakam's anger came from ego, the next singers came from pride and a taste of revenge that outlasted entire careers. Number 19, Toby Keith. Toby Keith's success wasn't luck, it was dominance. But with that power came a streak of arrogance Nashville still whispers about. Crew members called him a one-man army, and not in a good way. On tour, he'd fined his own band for missing notes and only allegedly docked a text pay for bad energy backstage. His feud list reads like a history book. Dixie Chicks, Natalie Maines, and even Chris Christopherson. In 2003, during a backstage run-in, Christopherson allegedly told him, "You don't have to be an ass to be strong." Keith reportedly shot back, "It's working for me." Yet, behind the bluster, he was sharp. Every feud brought headlines and ticket sales. His tours grossed over $60 million between 2002 and 2005 alone. Toby didn't crave respect, he craved control. But if Toby played the arrogant boss, the next man was chaos in motion, one bar fight away from imploding completely. Number 18, Steve Earle. Steve Earle was too smart for his own good and too wild to care. In the 80s, he was hailed as country's new outlaw, but by 1994, he was behind bars for heroin and cocaine possession. Before his arrest, he'd been banned from multiple Nashville venues for drunken outbursts, including where he smashed a mic stand through a speaker after the sound didn't feel real. He missed entire studio sessions, one showing up 3 days late, barefoot, and high. He admitted later he spent his royalties on dope and mistakes. Even fellow artists avoided touring with him. One called him a genius wrapped in dynamite. By 1995, his label dropped him, and he vanished from the charts. When he resurfaced sober years later, he joked, "I'm a 7-time loser who got lucky." But luck wasn't enough for everyone, especially the man who smiled on TV while quietly terrorizing his staff. Number 17, Buck Owen. Buck Owen sold the image of a country gentleman, grinning through hee-haws, corny sketches. But off camera, it was another world. Employees at his Bakersfield radio station said he'd berate workers for mispronouncing sponsor names on air. He could humiliate you with a smile, one DJ said years later. He ran his empire like a dictator. Record label, radio station, TV shows. Musicians claimed he'd dock pay for being late by a minute. Even longtime collaborators like Don Rich confessed Owens was brilliant but impossible. The biggest shock came after his death in 2006, when his memoirs revealed he'd manipulated publishing rights to keep control over band members' songs. "It wasn't greed," he wrote, "just business." His empire stood tall, but so did the resentment. And while Buck ruled through fear, the next man let chaos rule him. Booze, love affairs, and fights that turned bars into battlefields. Number 16, Lefty Frizzell. Lefty Frizzell had a voice that could melt hearts, but a temper that could empty a room.
I can tell by the way your eyes shine you're in love.
By 1952, he was one of the biggest names in the country, yet he was banned from more honky-tonks than he was booked in. Bartenders said he'd throw fists over unpaid tabs, and bandmates swore he'd vanish mid-tour with someone's wife. He drank like he was racing Hank Williams, sometimes putting away 2 bottles of whiskey in a night. Once, after forgetting lyrics live on stage in Dallas, he hurled his microphone into the crowd and walked off mid-song. RCA nearly dropped him 3 times for unreliability. By 1975, he was bankrupt, estranged from most of his peers, and dead at just 47. Alcohol wasn't the cause, but it took everything first. And while Lefty's demons were personal, the next star's sins played out in public, under the bright lights of betrayal and rhinestones. Number 15, Porter Wagoner. Porter Wagoner looked like country music royalty. Bright suits, big smile, big ego. But behind the charm was a man who didn't handle independence well, especially when it came from Dolly Parton. She joined his TV show in 1967, and within 2 years she was the star everyone wanted. That drove him crazy.
I believe we have a firm foundation.
He controlled her schedule, her interviews, even her outfits. When she told him she was leaving to start a solo career, he exploded. She wrote, "I will always love you," as a goodbye to him. Beautiful on the surface, but her way of escaping without a fight. Porter didn't take the hint. In 1979, he sued her for $3 million, claiming breach of contract. Dolly quietly settled to keep the peace. He later admitted he'd been selfish and jealous. And while Porter's cruelty was emotional, the next story takes that same darkness and turns it into pure rebellion and rage. Number 14, Hank Williams Jr. Hank Williams Jr. was born into a legacy that would have crushed anyone else, but instead, he exploded under it.
I don't care about the Hall of Fame. Hey, I'm gonna live my life.
By the 1980s, his concerts were more like war zones than shows. He'd rant about politics between songs, pick fights with critics, and once punched a reporter who called him washed up. His 1975 mountain fall almost killed him. 47 facial fractures, 2 years of reconstructive surgery. Most people would have softened after that, but Hank doubled down. He became louder, angrier, and more stubborn. He told Rolling Stone, "I'm not here to make friends." In 2011, he compared Obama to Hitler on live TV, and ESPN immediately dropped him from Monday Night Football. His response? "I quit before they could fire me." That defiance made him a legend to some, a nightmare to others. But the next outlaw? He made Hank's temper look like self-control.
One just calls me Hank.
Number 13, Merle Haggard. Merle Haggard was pure contradiction. Brilliant, soulful, and mean as hell when the mood hit. He'd gone from San Quentin inmate to superstar by 1970, but the fame magnified every dark edge. One night in 1977, during a rehearsal in Tulsa, he stopped mid-song, glared at his band, and yelled, "You all look like you'd rather be anywhere else." He fired every one of them before the next verse. His road manager once said, "When Merle drank, you either ducked or ran." He'd smash bottles, curse out promoters, and cancel gigs if the crowd didn't feel country enough. Still, he wrote songs like "Mama Tried" and "Sing Me Back Home" that broke hearts. He was cruel, but never hollow. He wanted honesty, even if it hurt. But the next man didn't just hurt feelings, he wrecked everything in sight when cocaine and anger took over the studio. Number 12, Waylon Jennings.
Music's always been one of the most important things in my whole life.
Waylon Jennings didn't do moderation. During the height of the outlaw country era, he was blowing through $1,500 of cocaine a day, and he had the energy to prove it. He once threw an entire mixing board against the wall during a recording session because he thought the bass sounded cowardly. In 1977, DEA agents raided his studio and found cocaine mailed in a package labeled Domestic Electronics. His response? He finished the session before surrendering the drugs. He joked later, "I didn't have time to get arrested that day." Waylon was magnetic but terrifying. Friends said he'd disappear for 3 days on drug benders, come back broke, then play a show like nothing happened. He didn't mellow until the late 1980s, when heart trouble forced him off the powder. But the man waiting on this list wasn't addicted to drugs. He was addicted to control, and it ruined everything he touched. Number 11, Glen Campbell. Glen Campbell was the golden boy of country pop. Handsome, clean-cut, TV darling. But in the late 70s, he spiraled hard. His cocaine habit cost him nearly $50,000 a week, and his relationship with Tanya Tucker turned into tabloid horror. They'd fight publicly, scream through hotel hallways, and break furniture like it was a sport. He later admitted, "I was out of control, mean, paranoid, violent." During one hotel argument, he reportedly smashed a mirror with his guitar and then apologized to the guitar, not the person. Police were called to his home multiple times for domestic disturbances. By 1982, his reputation was in ashes. Rehab saved his life, but not his image. Even Tanya said later, "He loved hard. We fought harder." And if Glen's violence was fueled by love gone toxic, the next man's fury burned on live TV, right in front of millions. Number 10, Charlie Rich.
My baby makes me smile. Lord, don't she make me smile.
Charlie Rich was one of those guys who could be charming one minute and a ticking bomb the next. The night of the 1975 Country Music Association Awards proved that to millions. He walked up to announce Entertainer of the Year, opened the envelope, saw John Denver's name, smirked, and lit it on fire with his lighter, live on camera.
My friend, Mr. John Denver.
Everyone thought it was a joke at first. It wasn't. Rich was plastered. Whiskey, Valium, and pure resentment mixed together. He thought Denver's pop country success cheapened the genre. The CMA banned him from future shows, and fans never saw him the same way again. He later said he didn't mean disrespect, but that clip became his legacy. Funny thing, Denver mailed him a peace offering later, a signed photo that said, "Thanks for the fire." But where Rich burned an envelope, the next man burned a whole forest. Number 9, Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash had a rebel image long before the black clothes and prison concerts. In 1965, his demons got out of hand during a bender in California. Drunk and high on pills, he set a campfire that spread out of control, torching 508 acres of Los Padres National Forest. It destroyed vegetation and killed 49 endangered condors. The U.S. government sued him for $125,000 in damages, over $1 million today. Cash told reporters, "I didn't start it. My truck did. The judge didn't buy it." But he somehow avoided jail. Even June Carter almost left him that year, saying he was drinking like a man trying to kill himself. Cash eventually sobered up and used the chaos to fuel his art. But the damage was real. And while Johnny wrecked nature, the next guy took his violence straight to another man's face. Number 8, Billy Joe Shaver. Billy Joe Shaver didn't bluff. One night in Lorena, Texas, he got into an argument with a man named Billy Bryant Coker at Papa Joe's bar. Words turned into threats, and Shaver, 68 years old, pulled out a .22 caliber pistol and shot him in the face. Coker survived, and Shaver calmly finished his beer before leaving. Police arrested him hours later. During his 2010 trial, when asked why he did it, Billy Joe famously said, "He needed killing." The courtroom laughed, but the judge didn't. He was acquitted in self-defense, but the story stuck. Willie Nelson wrote a song about it, and even Bob Dylan referenced him as the toughest man in Texas. And if that wasn't enough chaos, the next outlaw didn't shoot people. He offended an entire country with words alone. Number 7. David Allan Coe. David Allan Coe never cared about boundaries. In 1982, he released an underground album so filthy, radio stations refused to name it. It was full of racial slurs, violent sexual imagery, and lyrics too obscene for airplay. When people accused him of hate speech, he didn't apologize. He doubled down. "It's freedom of speech," he told Spin. "If you don't like it, don't buy it." Columbia Records quietly dropped him, and Nashville blacklisted him. Even outlaw icons like Waylon Jennings distanced themselves. Coe leaned into the villain role, showing up to shows in skeleton suits and claiming he'd spent 20 years in prison, which wasn't entirely true. By the late 80s, he was broke, angry, and banned from most major venues. But his cult following still filled bars, drawing to the danger. And while Coe's poison was his mouth, the next man's sins were biblical: lust, violence, and scandal, all rolled into one. Number 6. Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis was the original wild man of music. In 1958, his entire career imploded in one day when the press discovered he'd married his 13-year-old cousin, Myra Gale Brown.
When were you married? Pardon? When were you married? Well, we leave our personal questions out of this, sir.
She was his third wife, and he was 22. The UK tour that was supposed to make him a superstar got canceled overnight. That scandal alone could have ended anyone, but Jerry doubled down. He drank constantly, smashed hotel TVs, and once fired a gun into the floor during an argument, hitting the bass player's chest. The man lived, but barely. In 1976, he drove to Elvis Presley's mansion, drunk, with a loaded pistol, demanding to see him. Elvis called the cops. Jerry was arrested on the spot. He outlived almost everyone, but his reputation never healed. And as twisted as that story is, wait till you hear about the woman everyone thought was an angel, but ruled with cold calculation. Number 5. Tammy Wynette. Tammy Wynette was America's sweetheart, but behind that soft drawl was a storm. She went through 5 marriages and countless feuds, and nearly every man who got close said the same thing. She was charming, but terrifying when crossed. Her ex, George Jones, once said living with her was like living on dynamite. She'd stage arguments, then tell the press she was the victim. During their breakup, she even claimed she'd been kidnapped by a masked man, a story police never verified. Some close friends believe she made it up to gain sympathy and distract from her collapsing marriage. She was brilliant at playing the media, though. Every headline, even the messy ones, sold more records. When asked later about her scandal, she said, "People love a little drama." And the drama she had. But the next guy didn't just bring drama, he brought gunfire. Number 4. Johnny Paycheck. Johnny Paycheck was as unpredictable as his name. In 1985, in a bar called the North High Lounge in Hillsboro, Ohio, he got into an argument about whether a deer mounted on the wall was real. Words got heated, drinks spilled, and Paycheck pulled out a .22 caliber pistol and shot a man in the head. Miraculously, the victim lived. The court didn't care that he was a country star. They sentenced him to 7 years in prison. He served almost 2 before getting pardoned by Ohio's governor. During interviews, he blamed whiskey, saying, "I was drunk enough to think I was right." Ironically, while in prison, his old hit, "Take This Job and Shove It," became an anthem again.
Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more.
Blaring on radios nationwide, fans loved the outlaw image, but where Johnny's rage left scars, the next man's madness swallowed entire families, careers, and reputations in a hurricane of booze and heartbreak. Number 3, George Jones. George Jones was a genius, no question, but he was also a walking disaster. He vanished for weeks at a time, skipping shows so often that the promoters started calling him No Show Jones. In one famous story, his wife, Tammy Wynette, hid his car keys to stop him from drinking, so he drove 8 miles on a riding lawnmower to buy whiskey instead. His alcohol binges were legendary. 2 bottles of vodka a day wasn't rare. Bandmates said he'd show up drunk, swing at his manager, then sing perfectly as if nothing happened. But the highs had lows. He trashed hotel rooms, fought strangers, and once chased a friend with a loaded gun during a blackout. Even after rehab, he relapsed again and again. When he died in 2013, fellow artists said, "He beat the bottle, but it beat him first." And if Jones was chaos, the man before him was purely tragedy. Fame, genius, and destruction packed into just 29 years. Number 2, Hank Williams Sr. Hank Williams Sr. is the reason country music exists as we know it, but he was his own worst enemy. He joined the Grand Ole Opry in 1949, became its brightest star, and within 2 years they fired him. Why? Too drunk to perform. He missed rehearsals, cursed staff, and once stumbled on stage so badly they had to cut his mic mid-song. At home, it was worse. His wife, Audrey, called him a genius with a bottle. He'd vanish for days, come home violent, then write heartbreakers like, "I'm so lonesome, I could cry." The pain was real. Spinal problems from a childhood accident led to morphine use, mixed with whiskey. That combination killed him. On New Year's Day, 1953, he was found dead in the back seat of his Cadillac, age 29. Cause? Heart failure from alcohol and drugs. But if Hank's death was tragic, the next story is pure horror. A country king who became a killer. Number 1, Spade Cooley. Spade Cooley had everything: TV fame, hit records, and a mansion outside Bakersfield. But behind closed doors, he was a monster. On April 3, 1961, after accusing his wife, Ella May, of cheating, he snapped. In front of their 14-year-old daughter, he beat her to death, smashing her head repeatedly against the floor. The autopsy showed 26 blows. His daughter ran for help, but by the time police arrived, Ella May was gone. Spade claimed it was an accident. The jury didn't buy it. He got a life sentence for murder and was sent to Vacaville Prison. In a dark twist, he was granted a weekend furlough in 1969 to perform a comeback concert for fellow inmates, and died of a heart attack right after stepping off stage. Country music never forgot him, but not for the reasons he wanted. Country music's golden age wasn't all cowboy hats and charm. It was chaos behind the curtain. If these stories shocked you, hit subscribe and join us next time for the scandals they still don't teach in Nashville history books.